let's move to a different section of crop deaths. I think this is pretty interesting. When I tell this story out of order, depending on who I'm talking to, the answer is usually different. So let's go in this order. If I went to the forest, and you might have heard me say this before, but if I went to the forest and let's say I'm not hungry at all, I filled up, I got all the food I want, and we hypothetically know I'm going to have all the food I'll ever need for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
I'm in the forest and there's an apple tree and there's one apple left on it, and I want this apple. We can even say hypothetically that this apple is a candy bar growing on a tree. I don't need this apple. I'm filled up to the brim, but I want it anyways because I like to eat food. I see a deer walk up. It's about to eat this apple, and I have a gun and I shoot the deer. And I go get the apple and I eat the apple. I leave the deer. I'm not shooting the deer. I'm not using the deer for any purposes. I don't know if it'd be fair to call this like exploitation or anything. I just wanted to stop the deer from eating that apple so I could eat it. Is this a non-vegan choice?
Yes.
Okay. And then so whenever I talk about the element of crop deaths, that I don't think this happens in a large way when you do the math. I don't know how many meals somebody would have to eat to mean that they killed an animal in this way. But an element of crop deaths that I hear talked about is that hunters will be hired by farmers to shoot deer and raccoons and all these different bunnies, all these different animals that will come in to eat food, similar to this one in the forest eating an apple, but they'll come to where there's specific man-made cropland. And I don't know exactly what the law should be on this topic. Honestly, I probably think that the farmers should have to make fences. It probably should be illegal to shoot animals that come to your crops. You should
Uh,
have to keep the animals out. But anyways, people will eat food where this kind of crop death takes place. And so I feel like I'm kind of like harnessing it down to a clear cut situation with this one apple and one deer. But is it much different? Yeah.
oh, I see what you're saying because the deer is the insect and the apple is our crops.
Well, no, not even just the insect. Like farmers actually hire hunters to kind of keep an eye on their crops, and if deer and bunnies and stuff come up to eat the crops, they'll shoot them. Like part of what is crop death. So you have pesticides killing the pests. You have the birds that eat the insects that die with the pesticides. It's like 57 million birds die every year because of them eating the pesticide ridden insects. And then you have rodenticide, so that's putting out poison for rodents like squirrels and mice and rats and stuff. They'll eat that and die before they can harm the crops. And then you have the only other one I know of is you have hunters that hunt for crop death. So that they'll kill a deer that's trying to like eat from a cornfield or something like that. So in the same sense that if a deer comes up to eat apples in an apple orchard or corn or whatever, that legally people, I think it's legal anyways, that hunters will hunt them, and this is a form of crop death to protect our food that we buy in the store. So if you go buy an apple in the store, I'm sure that it would take maybe 1,000 apples of eating before you've killed a deer, or I don't know how many, maybe more than 1,000. That it's just kind of scaled down for shooting, because that's kind of the thing. The Vegan Gains thing about rats is he's saying it doesn't matter that I killed these rats. They violated my food I'm growing, my property, the food I want to eat. So he would have to, and I wish I thought of this at the time of debating him, he would have to say that he'd also be okay with killing the deer to eat the apple because that deer violated his want for that apple. Unless it's a property thing and you have to have human agreed upon property and that deer's eating the apple on the part of the forest I purchased. But anyways, yeah.
I guess a little bit of difference that I see, and you'll probably just counter with what if I want to eat food that I don't need? Um, which is like you wanted to eat the apple, but you were already full, so you killed the deer. But we need to eat some food.
Mhm.
Um, so
I factored that in because I have interesting thoughts on even though we shouldn't worry about every little detail of everything we do in life. We wouldn't have time to. I have this thought that if we overeat or if we eat unhealthy food, or let's say somebody's vegan, they don't want to harm animals, but they're like, they eat so much they get to like 200 pounds overweight, then that's what the equivalent of eating that food when you don't need to eat is. I wonder if there are crop deaths happening with rodenticides, the birds dying from the insects, animals being hunted. And that is only happening for our taste pleasure to eat like vegan donuts and Impossible burgers and stuff like that. And we're letting ourselves get overweight. So we're not eating just for survival or even for optimal health. I obviously it'd be silly and bad for the vegan movement to call this not vegan, but just amongst us vegans, I feel like it's worth thinking about. If I was able to get it across to somebody that was like 200 pounds overweight that was vegan without insulting them, that they would be causing less harm if they would eat more for an optimal health than overeating.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I guess, yeah, so we have you in the forest killing the deer to take the food you want. And then we have me at the grocery store buying the food. And then part of that money goes to hiring someone to come and kill the deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say still the difference is the intention behind each action. Like I personally intentionally chose to kill this deer because I wanted the apple.
What if you hired somebody to go kill the deer and get that apple and bring it to you on a soft pillow?
Oh, I guess it would still be wrong to do that because the deer's having their life taken.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess with the crop, it's like if a deer comes up, then they will be shot. Where the other one, it's go shoot this deer. But then again, it might be go get my apple. But if a deer comes up, don't let that deer get my apple. So I feel like it is pretty darn equivalent. But I think you're right.
Think it is too.
Yeah, if you do the direct shot, it's definitely douchier. It feels worse.
Yeah. I have this like I can intellectually like equate these two situations. Like they feel very, very similar, but like the one just feels wrong.
Yeah.
It's
and
very
the
hard to
reason is the
pinpoint,
crops, we have the potential of not doing this. I have my own garden. I grow food all the time. I get so many tomatoes and strawberries. It's crazy. And I don't spray anything. I don't even put like organic, like neem oil or anything to keep the slugs away. I share my strawberries with the slugs, but I get a lot of stuff from it. And I don't harm any animals. I haven't done any crop animal shooting. So it can be done. And hopefully with innovation, it can be done on mass scale. One of the saddest parts to me is killing the rodents. And I think we'll be able to make sound machines that there'll be a certain radius that the sound will make rodents not go near that sound, like different frequencies. And so part of the problem is you will never be able to shoot a deer for an apple without the deer dying, but you will be able to harvest plant food for humans without animals dying. So that's part of why it's not wrong, but it definitely is wrong when it happens. When we know it is likely, if we can know from every farmer that 10 deer are going to be shot every single year, then we can be prepared. The next year we'll know that's happening. It's not like maybe. It's like we don't spray pesticides because maybe the insects won't land there and won't die. We spray them because they always land there. And because we spray them, we are intentionally doing a thing that will kill them.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it's just sort of like an unfortunate like byproduct of mass food production. Especially for like the current state of the world where there are not many vegans around. Because if people aren't going to care about the cows and the pigs that are being killed, no one's caring about the insects or the mice in the crop field. And I feel like it's just like this unfortunate time window where once like enough people get on board with thinking, oh, maybe we shouldn't kill animals and maybe we shouldn't take their, secretions from them. I hope we'll get to a point where we say, maybe we don't need to be spraying all these insecticides and pesticides and killing the birds too. So,
Well,
Yeah.
so in that case, what would you say? So I hear there are a bunch of vegans that don't eat organic food because it supposedly, unless it's a veganic farm, which they're rare, organic food uses manure. And I don't know if manure is expensive, and so non-organic food doesn't use manure. But because they don't, I don't know if there's a connection with pesticides and manure. But anyways, if you buy organic at the store, you're using the byproduct of manure. If you
Mm.
buy non-organic at the store, then pesticides were used, and there's more crop deaths, rodenticides, and that kind of thing. Do you think one of those, just at a basic guess, you would consider one more wrong?
Um, I don't think I consider either of those more wrong than the other. Um,
Hmm.
so this is the so
Manure
in the
versus
case of like manure
pesticides.
versus pesticides, yeah. Um, yeah, I buy and eat organic stuff. Sometimes, like if it's like I don't give it much thought, I'll just pick it
Yeah,
up and
that's
buy
all I
it.
buy. Yeah.
Um, I guess the because we have a couple byproducts, right? So we have the manure from the animal agriculture industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what other byproducts exist that are like? I guess gelatin would be something like something we're
No
going
animal would
to.
be killed for gelatin,
Yeah,
but since they're killed, they'll use the
yeah.
gelatin.
Like we
Yeah.
have the bones, so we might as
Yeah.
well use it. Yeah, it's like we are. It's inevitable to. This is actually maybe an interesting thing because it's inevitable that we're going to have animal bones around, and it's also inevitable that we have the manure around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in both cases, we are giving like a fraction of our money to animal agriculture for gelatin and for organic food.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what the difference is here because I don't eat gelatin and I wouldn't buy it, but I buy organic food.
Yeah, like if gelatin was used to grow your crops for organic food, if they put the gelatin there, you would still buy that food, and that might just be something that we can get our brains to get around where we don't want to consume it. Huh. Well, maybe it's because, especially if you're a healthy person or health conscious, that you have to eat the food. So you can either have insects die and also get pesticides in your body, or you can know this byproduct exists of manure. And when that's put on there, you are going to consume what you find to be healthy, whether it's brown rice or apples or broccoli or whatever. But gelatin, I don't think we view that as a healthy thing. Maybe if it was a very healthy for you byproduct, would you consume it?
If I needed it to be healthy, then sure. But if I
Mm.
don't, then no, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Um,
But you would let it be used to grow your food if it was gelatin. Gelatin was used just like manure to grow food.
yeah, I feel like I would have to say that yes, I would
Hmm. But
because
only compared to pesticides. If we had crops grown with pesticides, crop grown with manure and gelatin, and then somebody figured out how to grow crops without pesticides, without any crop deaths, and no byproducts, I'm guessing if it was equal price, me and you would both purchase that.
what are my options again?
So you have crops grown with pesticides that there's a bunch of crop deaths involved, and
Mm.
then you have crops using that are organic, and so they use manure and also using gelatin, our added hypothetical that's similar to manure. And then this third option is none of that. It's just a farm figured out how to grow food without any pesticides. They're not killing any animals, and they're not using gelatin or manure. That would be the option, the answer, right?
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and so since we only have the two, we're picking between the two. And
Mhm.
if one was a clear answer, we would say, of course, we won't use the manure and the gelatin to grow it, but we're recognizing that we have to eat.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I guess it's the best case scenario for the current system. Like,
mhm.
yes, I have to give some of my money to animal agriculture to grow this organic food for me.
Mhm.
But it's kind of I'm stuck. I'm
Well,
stuck doing so,
wouldn't
right?
wouldn't you think if half, let's say half of the country went vegan, and therefore half the amount of cows are bred into existence, I think this would just force farmers to have to figure out better approaches than manure
Oh,
for
right.
farming.
Yeah, yeah,
They
for
they
sure.
would just use food compost, which I'm guessing is
Hmm.
very very similar. No, I don't think anybody's going to have a farm to just have cows live out great lives so we can use their manure. But even if they did, that's better than what we have now. Um,
Right.
but I'm guessing the more vegans there are, the better um, options there will be for farmers making stuff without byproducts
Mhm.
or chemicals. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess purchasing foods that are grown with manure is not a non-vegan action.
Yeah. So then it just comes down to if all foods use either pesticides or manures, would you say at some point if somebody weighed a certain amount or were buying a product that had no benefit to their health, it was only for taste pleasure, which is similar to our concern with people eating animals for taste pleasure, that at some point, if they're 200 pounds overweight or if they're eating like 10 vegan donuts a day, that it would be reasonable to at least think the morally right thing to do would be not to do that.
Yeah, I guess it would be to like reduce your amount of harm that you're impacting on others. Um,
Hmm.
is it not vegan to say like, be like a bodybuilder or like overweight with the dozens of vegan donuts?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I can't say that it's not vegan to do that. I'd say
Hmm.
you're still a vegan if you're overweight or if you're bodybuilding, doing something you don't need to.
Hmm.
Um, I
Well,
guess
do
because you're not
you
intentionally like wanting someone to die for you, I guess.
Yeah. Do you view, see, I view bodybuilding as slightly different because I don't know about you, but like, so I'm vegan because I can be. But if humans, or at least if half the humans were a subset of different type of species that was similar to humans, were obligate carnivores, I would not sacrifice myself. I would eat the bare minimum of what I needed for optimal health, and then I would not overeat. I wouldn't, kind of like somebody might overeat like a vegan donut or something. I would never eat like a deep fried chicken nugget or a hot dog or something like that. I would eat whatever the healthiest way for an obligate carnivore human to do. But some people might sacrifice their own life. So I would connect that with the bodybuilder thing, where if somebody is consuming foods that might involve crop deaths or manure use or whatever to get optimal health, including bodybuilding, I would consider maybe not certain bodybuilding, but just trying to have the healthiest body you can, to have the greatest life you can, to live to 100 and be in good shape and not be in the hospital all the time. I would view that as an acceptable action to do, different from getting overweight.
Hmm. So, so let's say then that we have two people. One of them is the bodybuilder. One of them is just like maybe eating for pleasure or
Hmm.
um, yeah. So we have two people who are, I guess, overweight in a sense, um, but one of them is doing it for like say health reasons or you know getting more muscles or whatever, and the other person's just doing it because they like the vegan donuts. Um, so since say like what is the difference then? Like if they're both eating the same amount of food, say like the same amount of calories, then
Hmm.
where's the distinction between like
So one's for pleasure, one's just to feel good, in the same sense that if somebody got pleasure from like torturing a puppy or something, um, somebody could claim the pleasure they're getting will benefit their mental health, and that's about the best we can call it. But that's low down on my list about somebody doing an immoral action to benefit mental health. Whereas something that will actually improve quality of life, if it'll make you able to have, if you eat certain foods that are equal to what the person eating overweight did, not to be a bodybuilder, but let's say that these foods made you, your memories were better, or, you're more intelligent, better brain activity or whatever. I guess it'd be something like including DHA or whatever. And then so the same thing for a bodybuilder. Not doing an action to get a specific physique for a look. I would say no, that's reasonable to call that somewhat like the overeater. But somebody trying to get their body in peak physical shape for being able to experience life in a good way, for living longer, and for not being miserable with sicknesses. So eating in a way that maybe you're overeating quality foods to improve your immune system so you don't get sick often. These types of things I would call reasonable. In the same way, if I was on an island starving, I'd eat a chicken to survive. I only justify immoral acts like that if it's affecting your actual quality of life, and I don't consider dopamine levels rising from pleasure to be quality of life.
So, I guess, would you say then it's immoral to cause more crop deaths for eating for just pleasure?
Something like that. Yeah. The reason I can't judge it too harshly is because then it's also somewhat immoral to have a larger house than you need because you're taking up this land and that, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like this very fringe, like everything we do is immoral.
Right. But I think we justify the eating vegan donuts type thing too much. Again, I'm glad vegan donuts exist and Impossible Burgers. If it makes people go vegan, this is great. But just having an isolated situation where we're just like analyzing it, like me and you, two people that are already vegans, what would be the best thing to do? If we truly are eating that vegan donut just because we have a craving and we're addicted to processed sugar and we know what it tastes like and we want it so bad, like, I think the right thing to do if we were ever to like get to a place where we knew this was the good action would be to not eat it. Where I don't think the right thing to do would be to stop living in your house and stop taking a shower, leading to you losing your job and these different things. But a choice that is something you're consuming, especially when it's harmful for your body. I think the right choice would be to not eat it.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I don't have much comments on that. I haven't really thought about that much.
Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting and worth talking about. At the same time, I would hate for people interested in veganism to stumble upon this conversation and to go, oh man, like maybe I don't want to be vegan if I can't eat donuts. But I just personally like breaking things down and whatnot.